wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the shit you don't do.
Hey, this is Zach Pasquarello. Good, how are you? What do you have going on? Do you have specific questions? What do you got? For mentorship, coaching, consultations, I don't have a special program. The best thing that I can offer is these 1-hour phone calls. So in a couple weeks, if you want to meet again, you can just use the same link and you can schedule another call. I do bookkeeping. That's like my main business. I do bookkeeping throughout the day, all day, every day pretty much, QuickBooks. And I don't just do bookkeeping for trucking businesses. I do bookkeeping for any type of business, but obviously I have a trucking company. So yeah, typically bookkeeping's like $200 to $300 a month. A service, no. Like in terms of a service that walks you through step by step how to start a box truck business, I don't have anything specifically like that. I mean, if you watch my videos, you'll probably get a pretty good understanding. Like I said, the only thing I can really offer is like these one-on-one phone calls. So I mean, if you go throughout the process and you find that you have some more questions, you can always schedule just like a 30-minute phone call. You could ask your questions real quick and then we could go from there. But no, I don't have like a formal, proper mentorship or training program to start a box truck business. Which truck is best for long mileage? So the truck itself, I don't really think matters a whole lot. I think the engine matters more than anything. And I've heard a lot of good things about the Cummins engine with the Allison transmission. That's like the best that I've heard of. However, in today's market, it is almost impossible to find a truck, let alone like a good truck at a good price. So I don't think that you should narrow down your search so much that you're only looking for a Freightliner or you're only looking for a Cummins engine with an Allison transmission. I don't really think that matters a whole lot. I think there's a bunch of other things that matter a lot more than what type of truck you get. I mean, it's important, but I would not pass over a different truck just because an International instead of a Freightliner. Like I would just try to find a good truck inside your budget. Make sure, what's way more important is that you have a mechanic properly inspect the truck. What's way more important is that you get an oil change every 8,000 miles. It's way more important to do your pre-trip and post-trip inspection. Like all of those things really matter and all of those things will really help your truck last a long time. But as far as like the best, like there is no number one best truck, like only get this truck. I don't have a recommendation for that. Yeah, I mean, now is a terrible time to start a box truck business. You know, full transparency, full honesty, now is a terrible time because diesel prices are way up and there's just not a lot of freight. There's not a lot of good paying freight out there for us to move. So now is a terrible time. It was way better a year ago, but just like the stock market, just like anything, it's gonna go up and down. It's gonna fluctuate. So you're never gonna find the perfect time to get into the freight industry. But no matter what time you get in, I believe as long as you have like firm business operations and as long as you're like a good business owner, I really think you can be successful. The only time I would ever tell anybody to rent a truck is if it's your last and only option. Because renting a truck is going to cost like $1,000 a week. It's crazy expensive to rent a truck. The one good thing about renting a box truck is if you rent a box truck and you run loads for 3 or 4 weeks and then you realize you don't want to do it, it's super easy to get out. But it's going to be so expensive. Like if you rent a box, like so how much are you seeing it's going to cost to rent a box truck in Massachusetts? Yeah, I would never recommend renting a box truck because I mean it sounds like you're talking about like $1,500 a month or a week, $2,000 a week whenever you factor in the flat rate plus the mileage rate. And I mean that's not sustainable. I mean you might break even if you drive, but that's no way to make money. And like I said, the only reason you would ever rent a truck is if like maybe you're not sure about the business and you want to have an easy out in 3 or 4 weeks, or maybe you don't have enough money saved up right now. But that's just not a good idea. Like if you are unsure about starting a box truck business, you're better off just don't even start it. Just maybe wait 6 months or maybe wait 12 months until you're really confident and really sure that you want to start this. It's never a good idea to rent a truck. If I were you, if money is an issue, just hunker down, don't spend any money, stop going out to eat, stop spending money and just wait 6 months so you can save up enough money to buy a box truck because it's just such a better business model. You'll be able to cash flow, you'll be able to make so much more money in the long run if you just save up money now and buy a box truck. There's no rush. The trucking industry is not going anywhere, I promise you. We're still going to be moving freight next year, just like we are this year. So I would not rush into things just because you're excited. I would take your time, save up money, and just try to do the smart thing in the beginning. That way you're not spending thousands of dollars, literally thousands of dollars every week on a rental. That's a waste of money. Yeah, I just talked to a guy earlier today, and he bought a box truck for $110,000. Brand new, but $110,000. And I see Ryder, Penske, I see people selling trucks all the time for $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000. Used box trucks with 200,000 miles from 2016, they're selling for $80,000. Like, box trucks are crazy expensive right now. Yeah, so in terms of the physical dimensions and specifications of the box truck, 1,000%, it's got to be 26 foot long. Like, that is most important. 26 foot long. You want to get a lift gate. You want to have a truck with a lift gate. It's not necessary for every load. I would say I probably only used it like 10 or 20% of the time for my loads. From what I understand, it's kind of become standard. It's become the expectation that every box truck has a lift gate. So if you don't have a lift gate, you might find yourself in a really difficult situation because the broker just kind of expected that you would have a lift gate. And then the width of the truck, almost all of the boxes I see are 8 foot wide. That's pretty standard. You're not really you can't really go much wider, and I mean, make sure that the box is at least 8 foot wide, but that's pretty standard. But what is not so standard is the height. So you have a pretty significant range, probably from like 90 inches all the way up to like 105 inches in terms of the height. And it's not a deal breaker. You know, I wouldn't say only buy a truck with a box that's 100 inches high. Like, it's not 100% mandatory, but just know that the taller the box is, the more loads you'll be able to take. So if you can find a box that's 96 or 98 inches high, that's going to be a lot better than a box that's only 90 inches high. So just make sure you measure that. And then also, if you can get swing doors, like barn style swing doors, are better than a roll-up door. Just because if you think about the way a roll-up door is constructed, it limits the dimensions of the opening of your box by a couple inches on the left and the right and a couple inches on the top. But if you have barn style swing doors, then you don't lose out. You don't lose out on like the extra 2 or 3 inch lip on the left, right, and top, if that makes sense. So try to find barn style swing doors, and then just try to find a box as tall as possible. The freight industry, like you said, is constantly fluctuating, but if you can I would seriously stay away from anything west of the Rocky Mountains. Just stay away from the West Coast, except for California. California has a lot of freight coming in and out of it. Other than that, I would really stay away from the West Coast. Texas and Florida, not very good. Depending, obviously, but if you got a reefer truck and you're running produce out of Florida, that's good. But other than that, Texas and Florida, not very good. Especially deep down south in Florida. Definitely stay away from Miami and those deep cities down south in Florida, because you're just going to get stuck and you're not going to be able to get out of there. The best place to be is the Midwest. Hands down, without a doubt, Illinois, Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Those are the best places to be. There's a lot of really good freight. There's a lot of high-paying freight and a lot of freight in those areas. And then, the East Coast is okay. As you know, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York are going to be paying a lot of money in tolls. But as long as you stay in the Midwest and the Northeast, I think you'll be fine. But stay away from the West Coast, stay away from Texas, and stay away from Florida. And that's not a perfect science. There's going to be some good loads going into Arizona. There's going to be some good loads coming out of Florida. It's not a perfect science, but generally, those are the type of trends that I've seen over the past 12 months. From my experience, it's pretty standard how much you're going to pay factoring and dispatcher. Factoring is almost universal 3%. As you grow, as your business grows, as you start making more money, you might be able to negotiate that lower. If you have a semi-truck, you'll be able to get 2.5%. If you've got 2 or 3 semi-trucks, you'll be able to get 2% from the factoring company. But typically I've seen 2 to 3% from a factoring company. And then for a dispatcher, you're going to pay 10% for a box truck dispatcher. You're going to pay 6% for everything else. So flatbed and 53-foot dry van, you'll pay 6%. But for a box truck, a dispatcher, you'll pay 10%. What type of factoring company have you seen offering dispatch services? Yeah, so if I were you, I would get your factoring from either RTS or OTR. And if you want, after this call, I will send you a point of contact over at RTS, and she'll be able to help you out. And then as far as the dispatcher goes, you're just going to have to shop around. You're not going to find dispatching from either RTS or OTR factoring. You're going to try to just find an individual, just a person who offers dispatching services. I've got a dispatcher that I can recommend to you. He specializes with 26-foot box trucks, so you can reach out to him. Other than that, you might just have to kind of shop around, check out Google, try to find dispatchers on Facebook. And the one thing I'll say about a dispatcher is everyone's different. Obviously, there are some bogus dispatchers who are overseas and can't even speak English and are kind of almost running scams. So if you ever work with a dispatcher, talk to that person on the phone first of all. And if they try to give you excuses for not being able to talk on the phone, that's obviously a red flag. If their grammar is terrible when you're trying to email or message back and forth, that's a red flag, because your dispatcher, his job is literally to communicate with brokers and your driver. So if your dispatcher can't communicate with you, like, that's a very bad sign. So just interview dispatchers, talk to them on the phone, ask what type of rate per mile they're getting. The best thing would be to ask the dispatcher for other carriers, like, hey, do you have any referrals? Like, can I speak with some of your current customers to get a sense of your services? And if they say like, oh no, we don't give out any of our carriers, and that's probably a red flag. Just do your due diligence when shopping for a dispatcher. Interview them, like, literally think of it like you're hiring an employee, because you're going to be paying this guy $500 a week. It's like you're going to be paying this person a lot of money, so you want to make sure that you put in the time and effort through the hiring process to hire a good dispatcher. And then the last thing I'll say is give them 2 weeks. So don't fire them after 2 days if they get one bad load. Like, bad loads happen. Like, there's going to be things that go wrong. Just, if you hire a dispatcher, just give him 2 solid weeks and just see how he performs after that. You can ask the dispatcher, you can ask them if they specialize in local loads or over-the-road loads. I mean, if they're booking loads from brokers and from load boards, most brokers have local loads and over-the-road loads. You can ask the dispatcher, you can ask him questions all day, but he can also lie to you. Like, there's no real way to back up his claims. So that's why I said try to ask for referrals. Ask him if he has other carriers who he would recommend. And then at the end of the day, the only thing you can do is you can tell your dispatcher, hey, with this box truck, I don't want to run any loads for less than $1.80 a mile. So it's your job to manage your dispatcher. So you need to tell him, like, hey, don't book me anything for less than $1.80. However, the only caveat to that is sometimes you're gonna have to run a load out of a bad area into a good area. So you might take a load from, Atlanta to Chicago, and it's only paying $1.60 a mile. But then you'll be able to take a load from Chicago back to Atlanta for $2 a mile. So don't necessarily make it so specific that any load has to be above $1.80. That's why I said give your dispatcher 2 weeks, because just look at all of the loads he books for you in that first week. And you just want that average to be $1.80. So if he books $1.60 and then $1.20, boom, all of a sudden you've got an average of $1.80. So don't freak out if you get a load for less than $1.80. Just give him a week. Give him 2 weeks and average out the loads he got you throughout those 2 weeks. But it's your job to tell him, like, hey, I want to average $1.80 a mile. So that way he knows. Because if you don't tell him, he's not going to know. He's going to book you whatever loads he wants to book you. He's going to book you $1.40, and he's not going to know your expectation is $1.80. I don't think a dispatcher is going to get you $2 a mile right now, not in today's market. So with all that being said, if you are the driver and if this is your full-time job, I don't even think you need a dispatcher. I think you should be able to do it all yourself. You'll be able to negotiate with brokers. You'll be able to get much better loads than any dispatcher is ever going to get you. And it's not a knock on dispatchers. It's your business. You're going to work harder than anybody else. And plus your dispatcher has 9 other trucks that he's worried about. So he doesn't care if he gets you a load for $2,000 versus $2,200. He doesn't care about that $200. He just wants to get you that load for $2,000 and move on. But for you, that extra $200, that's going to make a big difference. There's a learning curve for everything, especially in the box truck business. And the first month is going to be terrible. You are going to book really bad loads, and you are going to spend a lot of time dispatching your truck. But it's going to get better. More brokers will work with your newer authority or your older authority, and you will just get more experience. You'll learn how to do it, you'll learn how to negotiate, and you'll build relationships with brokers. But the key is that you're doing it, that you're learning, and you're not just outsourcing it to somebody else, and you're not gaining that experience, and you're not building those relationships. Don't go into it thinking it's going to be easy. I always tell people, plan to spend 2 to 4 hours every day dispatching your truck. So you're going to spend 11 hours driving, and then you're going to spend 2 to 4 hours on top of that doing administrative tasks, dispatching your truck and invoicing brokers and factoring loads, dealing with paperwork. But the 2 to 4 hours is reasonable because you're going to be sitting at the shipper and the receiver sometimes for an hour, sometimes 2 hours a day. So just get a laptop. You can buy a laptop on Amazon for like $300. Get a laptop, get a subscription to the DAT load board, and then you can dispatch your truck on your own. Yeah, so you definitely need to have your DOT medical card. So you want to make sure you have that in your truck. You want to have, obviously, your certificate of insurance in your truck. You want to make sure you have your registration, and you want to make sure that you get your truck inspected. So it needs to have a DOT inspection. There are 2 types of inspection. You can get a federal DOT inspection or a state DOT inspection. So take your truck to the mechanic and just ask them to do a DOT inspection, and they'll probably say, we can do both. They'll probably do a federal and a state DOT inspection. But as far as paperwork, like that's all you really need. Your DOT medical card, your driver's license, your vehicle inspection, your vehicle registration, and your insurance card, and then you always need to have your bill of lading. So just make sure you have the bill of lading from the shipper and the receiver, and then, like you said, your electronic logging device. There's no paperwork associated with your electronic logging device, but you just need to make sure you are in compliance with the DOT hours of service. If I were you, keep it simple. Just use one, maybe 2 fuel cards at most. So I know RTS, they partner with Pilot Flying J. Your best option is to use the fuel card that partners with your factoring company, because if you do that, your factoring company will give you an additional 0.5% off of your factoring fee. And that's going to save you a lot of money. It's going to save you a lot of money, especially because in this industry, we have a lot of money. We have a lot of invoices. We have a lot of revenue. So if you're saving 0.5% and you're making, $5,000 a week, that you're making $250,000 a year, and 0.5% of that is $1,000. So right off the bat, you're going to save $1,000 a year if you just simply partner your fuel card with your factoring company. So that's important. But then on top of that, just keep it simple. Like I said, 1, maybe 2 fuel cards. A lot of I know Love's and Pilot Flying J, they'll offer like 16 cents off per gallon. So I think that's pretty standard, like 10 to 20 cents off per gallon. All of the major gas stations offer like a fuel card specific to them. So like Love's, Pilot Flying J, Petro, TA, like they all have specific fuel cards. But then you can also get generic fuel cards like Fuelman, and you can pretty much use that anywhere. Or Wix or EFS, like they all have fuel cards that you can use at almost any gas station. But I would skip all that and just whoever you decide to do factoring with, if it's RTS, just use the Pilot Flying J fuel card associated with the factoring company. Like just because you don't want to roll up to a gas station with 5 different fuel cards trying to fumble around and figure out which fuel card to use. And then you got to worry about paying all those bills every week. Like it's seriously not worth saving pennies on the gallon. Like just use 1 or 2 fuel cards, just keep it simple. Are you an LLC or an S corporation? You can pay yourself whatever you want. If you were an S corporation, you would be required to pay yourself a reasonable salary. But if you are simply a single member LLC, you do not need workers' comp insurance. You do not need payroll. You can pay yourself as little or as much as you want. And like I said, you don't need payroll. So you literally just take your business checking account and you just transfer money from your business checking account to your personal checking account. It can be an ACH direct deposit, or you can write yourself a check. It doesn't matter how you do it. It does not need to be run through a formal payroll company. I think hiring and maintaining good drivers is the hardest part of any business, and the trucking business is no different. If you have a family member or a friend who wants to work with you, I think that's awesome. There is a lot of risk and there's a lot of reward potential for working with family and friends. Obviously, if you decide to hire your spouse or your mom or your dad or your kids or your cousin and things go badly, it's going to ruin your family. But you trust this person, you love this person, and it could go really well. it's impossible to know if it's going to work out or if it's going to end poorly. There is always a pretty big risk associated with working with family and friends, but the reward is also there. The potential for reward is also there. The only thing that I always recommend is that I would say is make sure, no matter what, even if it's your husband, your wife, your mother, your father, your best friend from high school, I don't care who it is, make sure you get a formal written agreement with that person. It's just going to protect you. It's going to protect that person. It's going to protect your business. And, like I said, it doesn't matter how close you are with this person. Just put it in writing, make a formal document, have them sign it, and just outline all of the policies, all of the rules, all of the expectations, how much you're going to pay this person, when are you going to pay this person, where is he or she expected to drive, should he wear a uniform, just outline all of those expectations and put them in writing. That way there's no confusion, there's no frustration down the road whenever problems come up, because there will be problems that come up. It doesn't matter who the person is, there will be problems, and you just want to make sure you stay ahead of it with legal documentation. Try to stay away from a staffing company. The only reason I use a staffing agency is because I'm hiring a CDL driver, and that's a lot more complicated because there's drug testing and there's a lot more legal requirements for a CDL driver versus a non-CDL driver. And also, it's just very difficult to find experienced CDL drivers because Walmart is paying CDL drivers $90,000 a year, and Route 20 Trucking Company can't keep up with Walmart. But if you're just running a box truck, then I would seriously just leverage your personal social media, post on Indeed. And, I found a lot of success with Facebook groups. If you're trying to find a non-CDL driver, stay away from a staffing agency, especially if you've already found a driver. There's no reason to run them through a staffing agency because you're going to pay a lot of money for an employee from a staffing agency. Like my staffing agency charges me $12,000 per employee. And no, it's just a one-time. They essentially charge me $500 a week for the first 24 weeks, and then after that, the guy's mine. But you can avoid all that by just hiring someone directly. Yeah, I'll send you an email with my staffing agency, my insurance agent, my dispatcher, and my factoring. You don't need to do any advertising in this industry because all of your customers are going to come. All of your customers are going to come from the load board and relationships you build with brokers. Like you don't need to spend any money or spend any time advertising on social media because you're not selling any products, you're not selling any services to other business owners, you're just moving freight. Like you don't need to waste any time with advertising or social media. I don't think you need a website. I've had a website for the past year and I've never done a single thing with it. And I hear a lot of people talking about business credit. I'm not even going to pretend to be some type of business credit guru. The only thing, I don't know. I mean, I almost think business credit isn't legitimate. It's not really a real thing. I might be totally wrong with that. So in my experience, I work with a local bank and I got a loan for my box truck back in 2021. And they gave me a great rate. It was like a $30,000 box truck, and I got it for 5%. 5 years, 5%, 20% down, which is a really great loan, a really great business loan. And then a couple months later, I asked him, I was like, hey, I want to get a second truck. Can you finance it for me? He said, no, probably not. Your business is too young, too much risk. You're growing too fast. I got you your first truck because you were going to drive it, and that's not very risky. But if you are looking to actually grow a business, no, we can't give you a loan for that. And then 6 months later, I had a tax return. I had a year in business. I had established myself. I had a lot of money in my business checking account. And all of a sudden, my local bank, my local loan officer, was willing to give me a $100,000 loan at 5% interest, which is better than any other loan, any other major credit card, any other loan company. And it was all about the relationship I built with a local bank and a local loan officer. I think that right there is exponentially more important than any Dun & Bradstreet, any business credit, any net 30 line of credit account. I don't think that's nearly as important as building a really good relationship with a local bank and a local loan officer. Yeah, so here's what you should do. So I understand that it's kind of intimidating, kind of confusing whenever you're trying to get a loan. So here's what you should do. Go to an unrelated bank. Find probably a local credit union would be your best option. Go to a local credit union, the one that you don't bank with right now, and just explain your situation. Be able to provide like budgeted financial statements, like estimates, like go in with like documents saying like, here's my projected 6-month profit and loss. Like your goal is to sell your business as well as possible to this loan officer. Explain to them what you're doing, what you're trying to do, and what you want to do. And you want to get this box truck for $60,000, whatever it is. Tell them how much money you have. You're looking to put in 20% down payment. Here's my credit score. Here's my most recent tax return. Like, just be prepared to sell your business to this unrelated loan officer. And then, the worst case scenario, they're just going to shut you down. They're going to say no. But hopefully, they'll give you an offer. They might offer you 8% interest, 5 years, 30% down payment. But just try to get an offer. And then you can use that information and that offer to go to your bank, to your local bank, and now you'll have some leverage. So you can at least go to them and be like, hey, I've been shopping around at this other bank, this other credit union. They gave me this offer, but since I've been with you guys for the past 2 years, I was hoping that you'd be able to do a little bit better than that. And then that'll give you some ground to stand on. That'll give you some leverage to negotiate with your current bank once you've already received that other offer from that other credit union. You don't need like a 20-page business plan, but I think it would be beneficial to have some sort of projected profit and loss, some sort of projected budget for your business. So like try to guess, you're probably going to make $5,000 a week in revenue, and then you can just kind of go from there. So if, 6 months, 24 weeks, multiply that by 5,000, you can assume you're going to make like $125,000 in the next 6 months, and then just kind of subtract out your expenses. And then you can show your loan officer, hey, look, like based on my projections, based on the current freight market, I'm going to make $50,000 in the next 6 months. Like I'm a good investment, basically. I'm not very risky from a loan risk management perspective. And I feel like these loan officers, it's all about relationships. So like if you can get a loan officer to vouch for you because you like came in like looking good, you sound smart, you've got a great business plan, and you sound like a good investment, your loan officer is probably going to vouch for you to the credit analysts, and then he's going to be able to push through that loan. So it's literally all about that relationship with that loan officer. That's the most important thing. Net 30 accounts, Dun & Bradstreet, like none of that really matters in my opinion. From my experience, it's all about that relationship with that loan officer. My best advice is to focus on what you can control. You can't control the price of diesel. You can't control the quote you get from your insurance agent. You can't control the traffic accident that's going to make you 2 hours late to the receiver. But what you can control is obviously your work ethic. So be prepared to drive 11 hours, 5 days a week, 55 hours of driving every single week. And then be prepared to spend 2 to 4 hours a day dispatching your truck. So you can control your work ethic, and you can, to an extent, control the rate per mile you get from brokers. Like that will literally make or break your business. If you can get $2, $2.25, $2.50 per mile, you will be infinitely more successful than if you only get $1.50, $1.60, $1.75 a mile. Like if you can negotiate with brokers, if you can spend an extra 2 hours every day cold calling, sending emails, doing research, putting in the time, so you're going to call 10 brokers and they're going to offer you some piece of crap rate per mile. And it's going to be tempting to just take that. That way you can just be done for the day. You can just get to driving. But you're going to call 10 people. They're going to give you a terrible rate per mile. You're going to call 30 more people, and they're going to give you an okay rate per mile. And then finally, on your 41st phone call of the day, you're going to get a really good rate per mile. And you're going to spend 2 hours doing it, but it's going to make or break your business. So just focus on what you can control and just put in the work. For the first 30, the first 60 days, it's going to be tough, but it'll pay dividends 90, 120, 6 months down the road. It'll just set you up for success, and you'll be able to make a lot more money, and then hopefully scale and get more trucks and hire more drivers and go from there. Just focus on what you can control.